Okay, so while you're doing, we're talking about while you're doing the movements, you want to have that feeling, that expression of what you're doing. That's part of the silk reeling. That's part of the qigong, part of the imagination. Oh, sorry, somebody. Let me just check. Somebody left a message. It might be Susie just telling everybody bye. Oh, okay, yeah. Susie signed off at some point, so she was just saying goodbye. So you want to have that feeling when you go to a performance, when you go to a dance performance, you watch somebody dance and you can tell if they have expression. When you watch gymnastics, right? When you watch gymnastics, performance, expression, ice skating, ice dancing, figure skating, it's a really big thing now. It's a lot of points. Can that person emote that feeling? So as you do the form, as light and relaxed as you might look from the outside, if somebody's watching you, they can tell if you're focusing on what you feel. Even if it's relaxed, they can tell that, wow, you're really in that world. So, to help you with that imagination, in traditional training, we have a lot of two-man training, right? And that kind of forces some of that on you, and it builds that imagination. So if in the traditional class, if I wanted to say, what movement was I talking about? It's during the beginning, doing the opening. Okay, so if we're doing, we'll talk about wave clouds today, right? So hands waving like clouds, right? Hands waving like clouds. So in traditional class, the student might ask, a teacher might say, oh, here's the application for it. And as you're doing the application, the student gets to feel what the teacher is doing, right? And then you do it as a two-man, you say pair up, and right, might be one up, one down, right? Right? Turning and turning, yeah, turn your waist, right? And then you actually have to manipulate a person physically, right? So you actually feel it. And then when you practice by yourself, I have that very concrete experience. I can say, oh, okay, next time I practice with Bon, when I was practicing with Bon, I was feeling like this, and I can imagine feeling that person. So even though you're training by yourself, you have to develop that feeling. So I was going through Dr. Lam's book, and the example he uses, and a lot of people use this, is he'll say, imagine like you're standing in water. So imagine like you have that light resistance, like just moving water out of the way, right? So if you're in a pool or at the bottom of the pool, right, you just can't swing your arms, right? If you fight the water, right, that water becomes like a wall, and it's hard to move it out of the way. But if you relax and you just sink and use the weight and the movement, the water will separate, but there's still that light resistance. And so you can use that feeling. And that's one way to do it. If on your own safely, you can have a partner. So on your own safely, you might just ask somebody, hold their hand up for you, and not fighting, it's not fighting, but here, turn this way, right? And I might ask you to just hold it in place, give me a gentle resistance, yeah? And I can play with that gentle resistance where I don't want to be muscling, right? We don't want to be fighting, but I just want to feel that right where I'm holding it, and then we can just hold it and loosen every joint in my body, but I'm not giving up. I'm not pressing her away. And we're just playing this game where we're just holding it and expanding while the whole body is activated. Right? Or you could hang something, like if you hung a string, or you hung something from the ceiling, something that moves, something that's flexible. Right? So like if Bond came and, let's see, if she just hung this straight up and down, right? So you could hang something and it would be loose, it would be with a swivel, a rope or something. If it's light, it would move easily, right? The heavier it is, then I need a little bit more force. So as I can add force, I still have to be relaxed and just light. So the fingertips are loose, this has to be loose, right? So I could still come up with training tools, a way to imagine that to provide enough resistance, enough energy, but remaining relaxed. So there's all kinds of ways that we could do this. Right? If you put wrist weights, right? You carried wrist weights on your hand, then you have that resistance. So you find something physical where you have a little bit of that challenge, so you can practice relaxing and expanding. And I like that example of feeling like you're moving through water. Okay, that gentle resistance. When I was talking to somebody about the form, and they talked about, as we're standing, this movement right here brushing me. This movement right here brushing me. Right? This hand is sweeping, this hand is coming forward. They said they were taught that while you're doing that movement, you imagine you're a hot knife moving through butter. Right? So you're just slicing through something and you're moving and surging, and you have to take your time, but has a gentle resistance. Okay. So looking, I'm going to stand, but you do it seated, and I'm only going to stand just so you see a bigger movement. And so as I have to make sure I'm doing the right our right style. Okay, so in our sun style, we have the seated wrist, right? And the hand moves up and down, right? So the hand is pretty much just moving up and down, but you need to move it up and down with your shoulder blade. So all of this is expanded from the fingertips. It's pulled back. As it pulls back, it pulls the muscles, it pulls the ligaments and tendons, but you have to let all the joints relax, and then everything can truly pull. And then put your mind on your shoulder blades and just move your hand up and down. Right? So just move your hand up and down. Right? Lightly stretching the fingers. Right? That's all it's doing. But if you use your shoulder blades, allow your waist to turn. So, right, I'm allowing my waist to turn a little bit while I'm moving it up and down, having that pumping movement. I'm just trying to expand my shoulder blades, letting go of all my joints and turning my waist. Right, and just using the shoulder blades. Okay. And then want to turn your waist. Right? So in the beginning, we'll say turn the waist. Right, one hand up, one hand down, turn the waist, and I'll say turn 45 degrees, right? One hand up, one hand down, turn the waist 45 degrees, one hand up, one hand down. But in reality, the hands, you want to feel this constant movement of the hands up and down. The little pause as you're turning comes from dropping the shoulder blade. So the hands up, and then I'm dropping the shoulder blade and then changing, right? It changes, and dropping the shoulder blade and then changing. So, oh, she disappeared on me again, right? So in reality, as you're turning, you want to rise your hand, right? As you're turning, the hand falls, right? So as you're turning, the hand's rising, and then the hand falls. So if you do two hands, And right over here is, you might say, hey, wait, your hand's not falling. Okay, so right over here, my shoulder blade is relaxing. So you don't see this hand moving up and down. But if I could put a camera on my shoulder blade, you would see my shoulder blade starting to drop. Right? So the shoulder blade is relaxed. Right? The shoulder blade is actually moving and swiveling. So even though the palms are sort of in the same position here, the shoulder blade is doing this kind of movement in the back. Right? It's coming forward, it's coming back, it's rolling. You have to try the shoulder blade. Yeah? So coming up and down. Right? So right here, right, I'm moving together while the hands are moving. I'm dropping my shoulder blade, and as I'm turning, my hands are rising. There's a short place where the hands hold that height, but the shoulder blades are moving. And that's wave hands like clouds. And you want to turn all the way 45. So to turn 45, relax the hip, relax the belly, right? Don't tighten, right? Keep the head up. Okay, so if you're moving through water, okay, you can move through water or feel like the top hand, even the bottom hand. Feel like the top hand is like that hot knife through butter. Okay? So again, seated or standing. If I'm standing, right, I just want to feel like a hot knife through butter. My whole body is shifting, right, and it's just surging, melting that butter. Right? And then now my top hand here, like a hot knife through butter, and my bottom hand will be a little bit more relaxed because my intent is on my top hand, right? Hot knife through butter. There. So even seated, same thing, right? It's like hot knife through butter, just melting that butter and sliding out of the way. A hot knife through butter. So you can remain seated or standing. I just want to show you it's the same thing. It might look a little bit different. Okay? Yeah. And right here, my shoulder blades, I'm manipulating my shoulder blades as I'm turning. Right? As I'm turning, I have this kind of folding here, so I can feel my shoulder blades swiveling and manipulating. Okay? So as you turn, I feel like you're cutting through butter, but a hot knife through butter. Just sink into your hips, sink into your shoulder blades, and shift all the way. Okay. So sometimes when I'm playing the form or playing the movement by myself, you really want to feel that, and you want to show a lot of movement, and you can really express yourself. A teacher would always say, express yourself, right? Whether it was like punching hard or slapping or blocking or doing soft movements, but you want to express yourself. And that's part of when I do this Qigong, right? And I say, throat Qigong, open your throat, express yourself, right? Project your voice silently, however you do it. So if I'm stepping, I can make it feel and look a little bit more subjective, a little bit more emotional, right? So I can make it calm. It can just be very calm and still, right? Very calm and still, just trying to keep everything balanced. Or, okay. Or I can really try to show that expression, really playing just really imagining, right? I'm manipulating somebody, or whether I'm fighting somebody or just moving something out of the way, right? I can just really have that intensity of feeling, of emotion. So express yourself sometimes. Sometimes make it really soft, really light, really gentle, and sometimes just play with it and just have that. You can see how my shoulder blades are starting to move, right? Like I'm moving something out of the way. So if, here I go. So if, just to kind of give you a lineup. Yeah. So if she has her hands like here, right? And don't move now, don't move. Give me a little resistance, right? And I'm stepping, and I'm coming up. You can see how my shoulder contacts first, right? Even though my hands are rising because I'm here, so it's my shoulder blade. And you see how I'm moving her with my shoulder blade? So my mind is not on my hand, my mind is on my shoulder blade. Stand, kind of turn a little bit. Yeah, and same thing, the arm out. So as I'm stepping, right, I'm 45 degrees. As I'm rising, right, it's my shoulder blade coming up. Right? So to move it with my shoulder blade, right, I cannot focus on my hand here. So my mind is all on my shoulder blade. So if you rest your hand on my shoulder blade, rest your hand on my shoulder blade, on my shoulder blade. Yeah. So you just hold it there. Right? So as I'm doing the form, right there, it's shoulder blade. Right? It's all shoulder blade. All shoulder blade, right? And holding that point, I'm holding that open, that light pressure, and everything has to follow. Okay? So feel what you're doing. Come up with your own little tool to play against something resistance. Like I said, you could just hang something. You just hang something from somewhere and just practice moving it. Right? If you had a bar or something that you could hang, like a metal pipe, you could just hang it, right? A metal pipe would be heavy to move, would give you just a nice resistance, but if it's just swinging, right, you could just see if you could push it, and as you're pushing something out of the way, is this tightening or loose? Is this tight or loose, right? Are you expanding the shoulder blade and just holding this in place? You want to just be like a soap bubble, just manipulating something out of the way. And while you're holding it, can you loosen all your joints, keep your head up, looking straight, suspended from above, feet anchored into the ground, right? All those things, okay? All right, so we'll come back to seated, because we're finishing up the seated form. And look at this, hands waving like clouds. Where are they coming from? So it comes out of the single whip, right? So it comes out of the single whip. Right? Your shoulders, everything bent, right? Down. Expand your shoulder blades out a little. Manipulate your shoulder blades out a little. So the warm up, right? This warm up, our shoulder rolls are not just warm up for the muscles, but it's a warm up to practice manipulating and moving your shoulder blades. Okay, right. So from single whip, right? As you turn, you want to drop one hand, right? And the hands start moving, and the whole time you can feel your shoulder blades moving. So you don't have to wait until you're 45 degrees to start moving your hands. You turn your waist, and you want your waist to be continuously moving. So there's a lot of movement in your body. So it's very deceptive. Right here where the palms look like you're not doing anything, your shoulder blades are moving, right? Because they're making an adjustment. So remember what I said, if you had a pen attached to your palms and you had that white wall in front of you, right, you'd be making spirals and circles and figure eights. Okay? So sometimes, you know, your hands can just be a simple oval. Okay? Or sometimes you can let it, right, rise up, or as you're turning, right, it can rise, and you see that diagonal line we're drawing. So as you're turning, it's rising, and then it starts to fall, right? And as it's falling, you're already turning. So then it becomes more, the diagonal, the oval becomes this way, right? So you can play with how and when you move your palms. And the importance of playing and changing the timing is that you get used to different options of movement. Okay, so what would this have to do with fall prevention? You never know what the situation is going to be, right? If you're encountering a fall. Right? If fall is always going to be unpredictable, if it was predictable, we wouldn't fall. Right? This is sort of that Karate Kid, right? The Karate Kid, wipe on, wipe off. This is the circle movement. But it can be a perfect circle, it can be an oval, it can be elliptical, right? You never know, like if you have to hold something in one place, but every other part of your body has to adjust. Yeah. Okay. So as you do it, right, listen to yourself. Is your top of your shoulders getting tight? Is this getting tight? Right? The only thing we want to manipulate is the shoulder blade. Everything else has to be expanded and relaxed. Okay. Come here. Okay. So what I want you to play with now, right? The sun style, like I said, let me get a little closer. Okay, so the sun style, what I'm saying is this seated wrist is very predominant throughout the whole form. So even as we do the hands waving like clouds, we're holding this expansion throughout the whole time. Right? So it's developing a certain kind of skill, certain kind of development. So what I want you to experiment now is relax the wrist. So do it more like the yang style. So the yang style, you're allowed to much more freedom of expression. So the palm and the wrist are allowed to turn and come down and rotate. So, oh, where'd she go? Where'd my assistant go? Okay, so in the yang style, right, it can come down, and right here it can lift this way. Okay, so it's like it's carrying up here. And I was actually taught at one point, right, you see here, and instead of aligning here, the disc can drop because you're lifting with the wrist and the palm is free. And then as you turn the yang style, the common application is that the fingers come forward. So it comes up, right? It's bringing the hand, it's guiding it, it's lifting the hand, and as you're turning, the eyes are scratching forward like a cat scratch. That's a common application, very straightforward application. So as you're, so yang style is a lot more manipulation, right? Coming up, follow, little heavy, right? Lifting, coming out, and guiding down. Relax, don't fight so much, right? That type. So in the sun style, where I'm manipulating a lot with the shoulder blades because the palm just stays like this, in the yang style, the hand can start manipulating. So I can start focusing on the wrist, right? Using my palm to manipulate something out of the way. So the sun style teaches me how to use my shoulder blades in the movement. The yang style will teach me how to use my palms in the movement. Okay? So the yang style, as we do the yang style, relax your wrist and have more that pumping. So remember when we were doing this, we're pulling the chi up and pumping the chi down. So as you do the yang style, hands wave like clouds, relax your palms, pump the chi down and pull the chi up. Okay? Guide it to the side, right? Then pull the chi up, right? Pumping it down. Yeah. So one way to do the yang style is the palms just pump up and down. So doing hands waving like clouds, but manipulating that energy, right? Pulling the chi up. I'm still using my shoulder blades, pumping the chi down. If I pull the chi up with one hand, the other hand will naturally fall. Right? So this, my left hand is drawing the chi up. I relax my right, it just falls because I'm displacing energy. Make sure you breathe. So this is playing with chi, playing with energy. Okay. So the opposite of drawing the chi up is pumping the chi down. Right? So this time you change the intent. The intent is to pump the chi down. As you pump the chi down, right, the earth chi will rise and the other hand will float. So you pump the chi down while moving. You pump the chi down and just let the other hand rise. Turning the waist, right? Pumping the chi down. If you want, you can convert it and you can still think of, like, as you pump it down, like a hot knife through butter, right? And the other hand just rises, right? Hot knife through butter. That same kind of feeling. You feel like you're standing in water, that light resistance of water. So have that feeling, that expression while relaxing all your joints. Yeah, so pumping. Right? And if you want, the yang style allows you to turn the palms. So I can look at my palms. I can still draw, but looking at my palms. So one of the things I like about yang style is it really does allow for a little bit more freedom of expression, allows you to manipulate the movements a little bit more within the form. And so you see a lot of variation of stylists doing yang style. And it just depends how they learned, how they studied. Yeah? Okay? So learn to express yourself in the form. Sometimes make it very simple, very light. And come.
I gotta put some medicine.
Come. Yeah. So you have to, in your mind, right, have that imaginary partner. So have that full expression and coming out, right? That full no, stay there. Have the full expression coming out, right? You're just manipulating something from there. So you feel like there's somebody there or something there, whether it's the shoulder blade or whether it's the point of contact is here, and it's just the whole body sinking and the whole body together. Okay? So go ahead and express yourself. That's very important. And it makes it more enjoyable. That's the imagination part, and it coordinates with learning the Qigong and expressing yourself. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so today's thing was learning to study song or song. The very straightforward definition of song being relaxation, relaxing. But when we look at it in the context of Qigong and martial arts, it's relaxing while expanding. So loosening, opening and loosening the joints, right? You cannot manipulate the bone directly, right? You cannot move the bone directly. You move the bone by manipulating your muscle tissue, right? So when we say relax the joints, it's relaxing the muscle tissue, right? So the joints just follow that, but then you don't want to be limp, right? You want to expand. So inside of your body, feel that expansion, and as you expand, you have to let everything go, right? And it's an easy definition to say. It takes a long time to experiment and practice and feel it, and you just have to practice feeling. And you go through a lot of different definitions in yourself, like I got it, I got it. I got it. 50 years later, oh, now I understand it. 60 years later, oh, I thought I knew it. Now I really understand it. 70 years later, like, why am I worried about it? Like, it starts refining. Yeah. But everybody has to start from somewhere. Okay. So learn to relax, learn to let everything go. Practice with your feet connected to the floor the entire time. When you practice these movements, you can think of standing in water, that light resistance that water will give without fighting it, or you can think of like a hot knife moving through butter. Yeah, those are some really good things, and you can come up with your own little toys and ways to practice and to provide you with safe resistance. Yeah, the number one thing for us is safety. All right, bring the hands up. Oh, and we will have, right now is everything looks good to have a class next week. So if you're free on Father's Day in the morning, I'll host a class. So I'll probably get in and just ask Susie to make me the host from the beginning. Okay, let's see if I can stop this.